Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Red Brick Summit 2020, we welcome you all to the TRBS Speaker Series. This year, TRBS has gone virtual, and we are extremely honored to host Zainab Patel ma'am with us. She is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at KPMG India. She was also one of the petitioners in the National Legal Service Authority versus Union of India case, in which the Supreme Court of India ruled the transgender people as the third gender and affirmed their fundamental rights under the Constitution of India. She actively represents the LGBTQI community in the corporate sector. She has also worked under the United Nations Development Programme as its HIV health and human rights consultant. Today, she will share her experience on the topic inclusion and diversity in workplace. Audience members, we have shared with you a Google form over email, and the same form is also added in the YouTube description. Please feel free to add your questions in it that you would like to ask, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. And a very good afternoon and happy Dashera to all of you celebrating it from a very hot and sweltering Delhi. And when I was invited by the students to speak at this gathering, I was thinking what is going to be the most apt topic to be. And generally, as I speak, I try and customize whatever I speak to the audience, and I generally sign off with the shairi because I'm also a shairi fan. But let me kind of all of us today are living in a post-COVID world, like post-COVID, as in the sense that we've not got rid of COVID, but definitely winning a lot of day-to-day battles on COVID. And when you look at COVID, three words that would keep coming up in newspaper articles, in magazines, in e-zines, on social media, in management, stuff. Three words are as in survival, resilience, and reimagination. Now, these three terms mean very different things for all of us because when we look at ourselves as individuals, as part of society, as part of the corporate culture, as part of the nation, these three words have different significance for us because each one of us is unique in our own kind of way. And although we, as part of being global citizens, are part of the same storm of COVID, we are in very, very, very different boats. And I generally like to start off my sessions with a small session on storytelling. As you know, as human beings, all of us love stories. I'm yet to come across a person who doesn't love stories because right from the time we are born in our mother's womb till the time we decide to move on from this plane, our entire life and our existence is around stories. So I thought I would take this opportunity to speak to all of you all through a little bit of storytelling. But prior to that, let me also tell you that I am a transgender woman. And when you tell this term transgender woman, it in some persons it kind of brings in some kind of awe. Some people would look at it with surprise, perhaps some with excitement, but for most it would come in with some kind of derision, some kind of resentment, some kind of outright rejection. And the rejection comes in because when we've been brought up in society, in our individual families, in our socio religious cultural backgrounds, we've all been kind of geared to only accept the binary of male and female. And when someone tries to break the binary, that's when, an antithesis is born to the situation. A couple of days ago, someone asked me that, what do you think is the most dangerous thing in the world today? And I kept on thinking that since he's speaking to me, would it possibly be something to do with the rise of terrorist attacks? Perhaps the person is speaking to the recent incident in Paris where the teacher was beheaded. And he said, no, 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 nothing like that. And he said, what else do you think? And me being me, um, a little badass for that, told him that I think the most terrorizing thing that walks on two legs on earth today is a smart, articulate, and outspoken woman. Because I believe when women are smart, articulate, and outspoken, they tend to kind of terrorize everyone around them. Not because of what they speak or do, but the very fact that they have an opinion of their own. They would want to speak about their opinion, and they're extremely sure that this is right. So I joined the corporate sector a year and a half ago, and since then being gearing up my corporate jobs, trying to deliver on the inclusion and diversity agenda of KPMG. But prior to that, for about 11 years, I served with the United Nations in India, and was also fortunate to serve them in a regional capacity in the Asia Pacific region. So before that, let me take you to a small story. About 40 years ago, little less than 40 years, that would make me sound too old. um, I was born to a set of Roman Catholic parents in Mumbai. And for all of you who may be familiar with the topography of Mumbai, you would know that there are large pockets of Mumbai which had mills, textile mills. These mills are being converted into real estate for offices, for malls, etc. So my house was next to a mill in Mumbai, and small tenements, one room apartments, were called chawls. So I was born in a small chawl in Mumbai to a set of Catholic parents, and I had the good fortune of having two elder sisters before me. One was 10 years elder to me, and the other is 8 years elder to me. And when my mother delivered, and when the doctor very proudly told my parents that here is a person who's male assigned at birth, and my mother probably heaved a sigh of relief, and my father was okay, not noticeably changed by the fact that there was another child in the family. As I grew up, there were instances where I was very sheltered as a kid because I was a premature baby. Had difficulties breathing, growing up, etc. So had a very protected, sheltered childhood. As I grew up, I realized that I wanted to be like my sisters. I wanted to be a girl. Now, why would someone want to be a girl? And I remember answering this one question as a kid, that while people ask them, like, would you like to be a doctor, an engineer, a pilot? And I told them I wanted to be a woman pilot. And, having seen someone in a uniform with their lapel and their stars, and with their aviators, and in the smart uniform that they wore, I thought I would want to become something like that. And people laughed at it. When it came the time that I grew, I keep on growing in age, and I realized the world is slightly different from my eyes. Because as a young person who was born, I did not have my sisters around because they were studying in a boarding school in Karwar. And if you actually look at me, and there is a lot of myth around transgender people, where people think that because you are born and reared in a particular environment, that you turn trans, you turn to be like women. There are situations where people are forced to do all kind of, but believe me, I have been brought up in a family with two elder sisters, and not from my parents' side, not from my sister's side, would they ever want the only male child to be like a woman, like as in wearing women's clothing or makeup or jewelry or whatever. And I never had the fortune of doing that because ours was a joint family at the time. Then came the time of schooling. Schooling up till primary schooling was great. Nothing great to report back on. Everyone has ups and downs. It's only when I reached the secondary section of school when I realized that there is something fundamentally different, not wrong, but different in me than what I see in other boys of the school. And because this was an all boys school, I kept on wondering when would this time come when I can actually wear a dress, um, actually grow long hair, and because hair and school going boys don't get along together. I mean, parents, teachers, just about everyone wants to cut it off. So when would I get the opportunity? And it's only during the seventh, eighth standard, when you're stepping into your puberty or adolescent phase, that I realized that I do not fit into the body I was born in. And was that a difficult proposition? Why couldn't people see me for what I saw myself? And then was born a love story. You know, in management, we've all been taught to look at the future, believe in the strength of potential, believe in the idea of germination of germination of a particular ideology, or something that sparks you in your mind, and that in the future this would grow into a big potential. And I had something similar. So in this age, when I get asked questions on who do you think is your role model, and I tell people that this is my role model, and sometimes people think that, yeah, come on, this one is another smart one, here's another person who thinks that she could probably do great because she's a trans woman or whatever. And I tell them, no, my reason about me loving this person as a role model is because in the 8th standard, when I was just 12, 13 years old, when I didn't know that at the age of 39, I would look like this, I would behave like this, I would be able to speak like this with such confidence, I knew that there was this woman in me waiting to come out. And for all of y'all who've seen this movie, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, it's 25 years of the movie. If you've not got a chance, please go and see a particular song from the movie, Mere Khwabon Mein Jo Aaye. And what Mere Khwabon Mein Jo Aaye does to you is tell you a story that in your dreams you met a stranger and you start falling. And I hadn't seen this stranger, and I had already fallen in love, and my love for this stranger was so strong that years of hypocrisy, years of misogyny, years of harassment, sexual abuse, abandonment by society and family, leaving school and college, would take all of those efforts to get this person up. And despite that, I knew that at some point of time I would fall in love with this person who came out. Then came the difficult part: depression, harassment, abuse in school. In the mid 90s, I don't think we heard a lot about ragging and bullying, much less about anti ragging and anti bullying sessions, etc. And my idea about going to school was that, you know, dealing with that harassment, with that name calling, with the slut shaming, body shaming thing every day, day in and day out, starting from the morning assembly till the time I would reach the steps of my building, people would keep calling me names on the road. And so, people, you probably heard about the Sushant Singh Rajput's case and how the person was supposedly dealing with depression. And I just wanted to take this one opportunity to tell all of you, depression is real. It can happen to people of any age, any caste, any religion, any body type, any stardom status. And as fellow human beings, it is very important for you to be cognizant of what's happening to you and what's happening to your immediate neighborhood. Recognize signs of depression, seek help, and be of some help to people whom you may think are going through a phase which might require some kind of help and support. With the depression also came in my, let me call them experiments with truth. And the experiments with truth was that I tried to self harm, not one time, but 7 times during school. So imagine a 13, 14-year-old kid trying to self harm. And in a country and in an age where getting access to sleeping medicine, sleeping pills is very difficult, because you need a prescription. People will look at your age. Getting access to pacemaker drugs was relatively easy, which is more toxic, could cause much more body harm. And I remember the eve teasing got so strong one day that on the eve of Christmas, I decided that I had enough of life. So this was this young 15-year-old in the ninth standard decided to end her life and ended up in the ICU of a major hospital. And as I recovered from that, I lost control of my peripheral nerves. The peripheral nerves are nerves that run all through your body. It controls your reflexes, etc., so on and so forth. Lost my vision beyond 10 feet, lost the ability to control, have reflexes. That means that I couldn't hold a pen, I couldn't write, etc. It took me 6 to 8 months of physiotherapy to get some strength back. And I had to repeat class for 2 years because I was not in the physiological condition to be able to write examinations or comprehend. So for a smart, bright student who could have been shy, etc., I was not the first ranker in my class ever, but definitely in the fourth to tenth rank. And from that to slip and fail a class for 3 consecutive years because you just couldn't deal with the emotional pressure, the physical pressure of going to school and starting life again. And each of those 3 years, which I was at home trying to give my examinations, passed through, I would be reminded as to how I committed suicide and how I got saved by it. Say I should thank God for being saved. Then came an opportunity. I somehow passed my 10th standard, went on to college. College was slightly better because I realized that I had lots of more potential. Won the best student of the year for 3 years, 2 years in a row, and once in degree college. But degree college also brought in. So I was studying management studies. I did my Bachelor of Management Studies from Bhavans College, Andheri, Mumbai. And I remember this one particular year. It was the year 2000. Some of you may perhaps heard about the Supreme Court and the Section 377 judgment decriminalizing homosexuality among same-sex consenting adults. Now, at that point of time, in the early 2000s, there were arrests made in the small town of Lucknow for few people who were convicted under Section 377. They were basically running an NGO. A lot of you may not be aware of this history that these few individuals are subjected to extreme police torture. In the early 2000s, we did not have that vibrant social media, but the print media and the television media, which was seeing the boost of Star TVs and all etc., all of those channels, constantly plastered their faces over every given opportunity of virtual or print space, calling them an aberration, calling them as people who corrupted people, and they were subject to torture. They were not given proper food, they were not given access to sanitation. Some people even complained that they were made to drink their own urine as punishment. And after about 15 days, they were sent out. And I think some of them still live into that horror of what they went through in that 15 days. And we decided to protest about it in Mumbai. I was my first year degree college student, and I was like pumped up. And I said, no, I have to speak about how can they do it to someone like this? How could you degrade someone like this? Pumped up as I was, went and gave an television interview. I thought I was very brave. But testosterone kind of went down, and I realized, shit, I have a TV at home, and the TV will also show news because I have cable. Fortunately, at that point of time, we had news that ran in a loop of a 12-hour cycle. So they would show a news in the evening, and then they would repeat it the next day or something like that. That kind of loop. I was, I said, fingers crossed, hope against all hope. I hope that they don't see me on TV. And from Churchgate to my house in Parel, I kept on saying that please God, don't allow my family to see it. And fortunately, they didn't see it. But about 12:31 in the night, a very good friend of mine from college called me up, and she told me like, "WTF? What are you doing on television?" And I told her that STF. No, that was not me. I went into denial, and she said, "Of course it is you." And she said, "Are you gay?" And I did not know how to explain to her that what's the difference between gay and trans persons at that point of time because I did not know it myself. And And she said, anyways, come to college tomorrow, we'll have a ball. And I went to college, and like a typical Bollywood drama movie, entered my classroom. And there was like pin drop silence, because apparently everyone had seen that clip on television. So I was not given a hero's welcome. I was given a zero welcome instead. So everyone kind of disintegrated for me. No one wanted to do project work. No one wanted to do their vivas with me. No one wanted to do assignments with me, group assignments with me. And that was scary. This treatment, they did not wanted me to use the men's washroom, because they thought that what if I kind of try something funny on them. The women would not allow me to use the women's washroom. And I said, where do I go? And one day, that one particular torture, this evening, I met a group of hijras. Hijras are basically transgender people who are known by their identity. And I said, I want to join you all. बस मैं थक चुकी हूँ, मुझे आपसे साथ join करना है. And I told my parents that I wanted. So my parents were conservative. I mean, religiously, socially conservative people. And they told me that if you decide to walk out now, there is no turning back. And I told them that you don't have any idea of what I'm going through. And they said, okay, fine, go. That particular night, I joined the group of Hijra community, wore a sari for the first time, felt very happy. On the night, slept on a mat, over an open drain, because, this was in the slums, and, had mosquitoes biting me all night through, and stayed awake because I didn't know what the next day would kind of bring up. And that time, next day, I had to do what they do, either dance in marriage functions, or go for a childbirth ceremony, or go shop to shop and beg for money. And at that point of time, in Mumbai, each transgender person would get 25 paise. I don't know how many of you all had the good fortune of seeing 25 paise, but get 25 paise per person for begging in each shop. So if you go in a group of four, you would get 1 rupee. So I remember going to the first shop and getting a 50 paise coin. And when someone placed it in my hand, I realized that, is this going to be my worth, my value all through my life? And that thought quickly came and went, because we had other work to do. We had to go to other shops. And I came back home in the evening with them. I cried for a bit, and I said that never gone through that life. I didn't have a rich family. I had a very average lower middle class family. Not even a bed of my own, but giving up all of that comfort to come and beg. And next few days, my guru told me that, and my guru is one of the famous transgender activists who's come in the Procter and Gamble Vicks ad, Gauri Sawant. And then she told me that, no, beta, you're meant for something better. तुम पढ़े लिखे हो, तुम आगे बढ़ सकते. She encouraged me. She came with me to college. We threatened the principal. She said that if you don't allow her to attend the class, we will make sure that we come and sit in the classroom with her every day. The principal was shit scared. He didn't know how to deal with it. I mean, he thought that, what if I allow the hijras to come and they'll create ruckus, and parents will come up and they said that, Dekho, the person can give exams in my class, in my room, but I can't permit this thing to happen. And I said I was more than happy. I somehow passed my graduation and got done with it. Then I said I wanted to build my future. Mumbai, traveled to Faizabad. Faizabad is a beautiful city in Uttar Pradesh, where the famous Umrao Jan came from. But met an old school friend who told me that, what are you doing over here? I've completed your post graduation. And I said, why? He said, you'll always be a clerk. Even if you get a graduate degree, you apply for a job, क्या होगा? तुम at best कोई clerical job देगा, कोई छोटा मोटा. But if you want to be a manager, you have to complete your MBA. And at that point of time, I said, MBA, yeah, that is for super smart people, like people who would go to SP Jain or Narsi Monji or the Bajaj Institute or whatever, or the Wellinkers that matter. And he said, नहीं आप करके देखो. It took me 3 years to complete 4 SEMs, completed that because I had to do what I did. I mean, as a trans person, I didn't have money, had to save up money, do that. So did it through distant learning, but I still took that much time. Then came the opportunity to come back to Mumbai, challenge people that चलो ठीक है पढ़ी लिखी हिजड़ा है तो बात कर सकते हो. Someone recruited me for a big NGO and they told me that अगर हम तुमको जैसे लोगों को जॉब नहीं देंगे तो कौन देगा. I took it as a personal insult and I said that don't I have potential? Won't I be able to deliver stuff for you? And I left the job after 3 months, wrote an exam, applied on merit, joined the United Nations in Delhi, moved to Delhi. From there, life has been different. I mean, as a transgender woman, my introduction often tells me that I've been part of the uh, Supreme Court judgment because I petitioned against the government. But what I don't get to hear as much is I was equally involved in the Nirbhaya case because I was part of a writing team that wrote a white paper on hospital-based interventions for rape and sexual assault victims. I did a big time project on manual scavenging in Devas in MP and other states. Did a project on the right to education. Did the People's Report on the right to information. Was part of a writing team in a presidential committee of the status of working women in India. Um, helped the election commission in coming up with a manual on systematic voter engagement and empowerment program. And I just felt that as a trans person, sometimes it is very difficult to break through the stereotypes, to break through the gender norms, to become someone what you want to. That also taught me many lessons. It taught me rejection. It taught me that come what may, people are going to reject you, but you have to stand strong because no matter what you do, at some point of time, you will always come across as a big wall. You probably heard of the concept glass ceiling. But what do you do if there is no ceiling? What do you do in that case? Well, you go ahead, create one, and then keep breaking it. So my benchmark is not someone else. It is myself because as a first trans director of India in the region, and perhaps in my organization, yes, globally as well. I don't know how many trans directors are there globally, and how many I know of some people who are politicians, and I've not seen trans directors in corporate. So I feel I have created a glass ceiling for myself, broken it, but what's next for me? And in a country of 1.3 billion with 5 lakh transgender people enumerated in the 2010 census, one person becomes a director. One. Is that an issue for celebration or is that an issue for sitting back and reflective that after 72 years of India's independence, here is a here is a community which was criminalized, which was ostracized, which remained on the mainstream, and one person makes it to a corporate. And this is the basis of the story that over the time where I survived harassment, survived discrimination, became resilient. Yeah, what do you do when you don't have food? Would you remain hungry and die? Yeah, that is one option. But you would go out, work, scavenge, beg, do something to survive. I did all of that. And I don't feel ashamed at all of talking about this because it is what it was that made me me. Someone asked me why did I choose this name Zainab? Zainab means a beautiful flower in Arabic. Zain is the Arabic word for beauty. But it is not about beauty. Zainab is one of the most powerful. The name Zainab that I took for is one of the most powerful Islamic women orators in history, who after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein and Hassan took the story to the world, and that's how we remember and celebrate and the martyrdom and observe Muharram every year. So I took my name from her. I met the person of my life who also happens to be from your state in Bharuch and took on the name Patel. Now I was like Kareena Kapoor from Three Idiots and like who said that Funsuk Wangru, why would I want to have Patel as a surname? But I realized the beauty of someone who loves me so much that I wanted to spend my entire life. So had the good fortune, went to South Africa, got married legally, came back to India, transitioned, and then here you see me in front of you. And this is the story of reimagining your future. Because when life throws only adversities at you, you have the internal power to change it and make it what you want to. Or you can sit, you can brood, you can tell people that this is what God gave me. I did not have a godfather. I did not. I just had superlative people in my life who believed that this person has potential, but in order to become the person that I needed to be, I had to go through this trial of fire. And using this example, let me take you to a small presentation that I have on inclusion and diversity, because I want to summarize some of these lessons into you. So I'm going to switch my screen and show you the presentation, and hopefully you will enjoy the presentation as much as you probably heard me speak. So the title of my presentation is One of Us. And I leave one of us with a question mark, because are we truly one of us, or this is something that we need to explore? I love the blackboard. I do not know now whether schools continue to have a blackboard, and my experiences of using a chalk, a colored chalk at that point of time, which was rarity. And the reason why I drew these upward looking arrows is it signifies growth, it signifies hope, and it signifies potential for all of us. And that's the sub theme of my presentation, which is the inclusion solution. What is inclusion and diversity? And I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to rush through these slides. While diversity is about each one of us, by core, nature is diverse. Prakriti diverse hai. Why? Can you bring to me two oranges, two apples, two human beings, two animals of a similar type and say they are absolute clones of each other? Today, with artificial technology and intelligence, yes. But if I were to look, can you bring me two people? Even our imprints, our thumbprints, or our the stuff that we have, our DNA is so unique to all of us. The reason is that it is a sum total of her experiences, of her qualities, of her characteristics, as well as our lived reality. It's all of us, it's all of what we possess. But the choice to be inclusive is a human choice. And by human choice, I talk about creating a culture which is striving for equality, and which embraces, respects, and values differences of our people. Remember this thing. It's not important to only be tolerant or accepting. It is about embracing, it is respecting and valuing our differences. And when you have this vision, you will become, whether an individual, an organization, a body, a society, you will be the clear choice. And your value for respecting the individual. It is hence critical we embrace diversity and inclusion to foster a culture of inclusion. So, why is diversity essential? So today's world, look at the bubbles around you. Talent, reputation, from a consumer perspective, from a legislation perspective, from an innovation perspective, and from a mobility perspective. All of these cues will take you to an essential fact that diversity is there, was there, and will continue to be there in the days to come. You cannot afford to run from it. Whether you talk about talent from a human resources perspective, whether you talk about reputation from a brand perspective, whether you talk about niche customers or customer diversity, whether you talk about legislation perspective, the array of policies, programs, laws, from an innovation perspective, different mindsets are able to come together with different, because all of our lived reality will prompt innovations differently. Mobility. And what happens when you talk about diversity but don't are not inclusive? It will only make things worse. Why? Because employee attachment will go down, because here you're talking about a whole range of people but not engaging them, not respecting them, not valuing them, not celebrating a difference. Your revenue ultimately gets affected. Well-being is affected, mentally, physically, social well-being at the workplace. Our workplaces are not clinics, they are not clinical structures. We are symbiotic, we work in coordination with each other. Individual performances. So whether you want to take it from down to up, or up to down, each one of this, and what is going to become greater then? Number of discrimination cases, whether it is discrimination on the grounds of gender, age, body ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, multicultural issues, these are going to rise because you're not putting into check your inclusion quotient. Absenteeism, like me, I wanted to remain absent of school because I just thought that that school was good enough for me to be in. Conflicts, internal conflicts, intra conflicts between employees going to raise. Number of missed opportunities that will rise. So when you're talking about corporate policy which can deliver diversity, but inclusion is driven and delivered by you as individual. So in your diversity, you can come up with leadership accountability supported by various matrices. Put a dashboard, great looking dashboard, number of women in leadership position, number of new joiners, M plus people looking at diversity, retention, attrition, promotees, all of that. Flexible work arrangement, diverse candidate slates, mentoring program, blast. But this is corporate policy. But inclusion is only going to come into personal activity driven at the manager or people's manager level individual who are able to increasingly spot their bias. And can they check it? Are you curious about different views, insights, and ways of life? Or you are talking about rigidity? Because if there is rigidity, there will never be innovation. There is never going to be mobility. And alter their behavior to make this easier for different people to be accepted and flourish. Because once you start accepting, then starts the journey of flourishing. So from this perspective, I want to talk about three different ideas about diversity. Where diversity is a compliance issue, diversity is a marketing issue, and diversity 3.0, which is looking at inclusion being embedded. So when you're talking about diversity 101, I mean, it's like basics. Leadership accountability, flexible worker, diverse candidate slates, mentoring program, blah. That is the basic. You have to do this. Graduating, do people look at their behaviors? Are they looking at inclusive or equitable behavior because they have to? There's a lot of talk on diversity and inclusion, but people are not sure what it means or how to talk about real issues. There is some amount of unconscious bias trainings in addition to what I just mentioned in 101. But 3.0 is aspirational. It is like wanting to do my super graduation or a double matriculation or a PhD or an MBA. Everyone needs to feel psychologically safe. I'm walking into a workplace, I'm walking into a society, I'm walking into an institution, and I feel safe. Not only from a physical safety perspective, but a psychological safety. Unfortunately, I can't leave my mind at my home. I bring my mind to work along with my body. People are curious about different viewpoints, insights, and ways of being. People can alter their behavior to make it easier for people. And inclusive behaviors become a way of being rather than the only okay thing to do. But can inclusion ever go wrong? And I have 3 slides to do with, and I'll end it with this. Death by over collaboration. All of us have seen a merry-go-round. Everyone would probably have enjoyed going a merry-go-round. But then what happens by death by over collaboration is that decisions go round and round and round and round and never achieve something. Let me talk to you about one example which has come up, and I'm not going to get into the merits or demerits of that case. Menstrual leave. People for it, people against it, but decisions will go round and round and round because we are unable to come to any issue of collaborating, and hence there is a death by collaboration. Faking it with tokenism, where people are brought in but not really being listened to. How many of us very truly have faked it with tokenism? Each one of us in our personal, professional lives, in our interactions, have at some point of time faked it with tokenism because it may make us appear cool, it may make us appear right, it may make us appear favorable. Think of this one, that do we really mean and include people for the genuine value that they bring, or do we do it from a tokenism perspective? Chasing consensus. A lot of people have probably seen dogs chasing their tails, and it sometimes, in order to agree on something, we kind of pursue it through agreement to consensus, where we kind of look at the quantity of the number of people kind of saying A's and No's rather than seeing the merits of the case. So we see what should be done rather than what needs to be done. One rule for some, one rule for others. I'm going to allow you to just let that sink in, because I know at each point of time, we human beings are extremely biased and we tend to bend the case for special cases, bend the rules for special cases. I'm sorry. So, what does an inclusive leadership look? One, I'm keeping your fingerprint in because that stands for an individual, because that is unique. It is helping people feel able, safe to bring their authentic self. But belongingness is helping people feel that they are valued member of the team. You may bring your whole self to work. You may have rainbow flags. You may have pink flags. You may have ability drives. Fine, that is talking about uniqueness. But can you bring a culture of belongingness? Can we truly bring Vasudev's Kutumbakam? That is something that you need to answer. Hovering at work, at school, at institution, what percentage of people report that they do not feel comfortable or safe being themselves as well? And I'm not talking about safety for any particular reason. I'm talking about psychological safety, and I'm going to leave you with this creating a psychological safety checklist. Don't need to answer me or question me, but I want you to tick the box ready sometimes office and do this exercise with each of the statements that I'm reading up. Have people told you ever that they have made a mistake? Have people told you ever that they have made a mistake? Rarely, sometimes, often. You learned something about someone that surprised you. Rarely, sometimes. You publicly praised a direct reportee or someone junior for expressing a contrasting point of views. Keep smiling in your mind and remembering. People shared information with you which you definitely do not want to be shared any further. Confidentiality, privacy, respect. People thank you for understanding them. Now, these are questions that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at any slate of gender, of ability, of orientation, of body type, of regionality, of religion, of ethnicity, of geography. And I want to leave you exactly in mind with enough time for questions. So these are basically KPMG values that we believe in. But I thought these are values that every one of us need to cherish and hold forth and true in life and work towards driving them. Integrity. It is we do what is right. And in the value of integrity, when you're choosing to do what is right, you will stand up. You will have a spine. You will stand up. You will oppose things which are not right. Because you cannot have integrity without a spine. Excellence. We will never stop learning and improving. And never stopping learning and improving comes from the fact that you respect somebody else's viewpoint because they bring a different perspective to it, which may sometimes be contrary to you or to the mainstream. For better, because we do what matters, not only what is essential at that point of time. How will you excel? How will you be a talent hub? How will you innovate? How will you be a disruptor? Until you do what matters rather than doing what is only what is done by consensus. From courage, where you're able to think and act boldly. Integrity, courage, because these kind of go hand in hand. And lastly, together. This is the value which is synonymous with inclusion and diversity, together. But without the remaining values, where we can't respect each other, we cannot draw strength from our differences, we cannot work together, our value system, our organic structure will collapse. And we are only kind of looking at disintegrating it as the time comes. Having said that, let me kind of leave you with these three colorful balls to reflect. It's the start of the winter season. Perhaps a lot of you would already be bringing out your pullovers. And remember that a sweater, a cardigan, a jacket, it's weaved with different fabrics. And I leave you with a shade of Fairs, who says that my own story, this is building on my story, building on what I heard from others. दिल ना उम्मीद तो नहीं नामुमकिन ही तो है लंबी है गम की शाम पर शामी तो है And I want to leave you with this message for a simple thing to say that there will be opportunities in your life which will drive you apart from people, which will take you away from stand up for what is right, stand up for being included, because people like you have the potential of change. And this change is coming in because you believe, you're willing to listen, you're willing to challenge the stereotypes. Thank you so much, and opening it up for questions.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a powerful and inspiring session. And we actually have just one question that everyone asks in various ways. So, what is one message you would like to give people who go through similar predicament, who have been bullied in schools, to take away from you? And on a similar line, how do you think each one of us individually can drive diversity and inclusion at our homes and at our workplaces?
Okay, so my answer is not only about people who face harassment or bullying in schools. It is about people who've been marginalized. Like, I don't come from a Muslim family, but I have a Muslim name, so experience Islamophobia, xenophobia about me. So I come from a Catholic family. I love Sufism, and I adore Krishna. So sabka saath sabka vikas type of person. But see, as someone who's gone through suicide, through abandonment, to sexual abuse, to physical abuse, to verbal abuse, you know, we are called hijras, and hijra is an abuse. Um, it's an abuse because you wouldn't want to call yourself hijra, like "Eh hijre." I mean, that is something which is derisive. But we have the potential of changing that into something beautiful. And my idea of life comes from the fact that I constantly challenge the status quo. Not all of us are capable of that, but in all of us have this potential of, because Rumi said, when the quest for answers start, the answering starts inside. So no one can tell you, 20 years ago when I moved out of my house, early 99, 2000, when the entire journey started, no one knew I would become a director in this organization. No one knew an IIT would call me to speak to them. No one knew that I would become, fight the government in the case and win this case and secure rights for millions of people across India. But the fact is that belief comes with time, belief comes with opportunity. And I don't know how many of you all have seen this movie, Bruce Almighty. If you've not seen it, I would ask you to go and see this particular scene in this movie, Bruce Almighty, where Jim Carrey is having a conversation with God, and he tells him, "I want to be beautiful, I want to be strong, I want to be courageous." And God tells him that if I were to make you, I could make you beautiful. And for those who think that God can't make you beautiful, there's always cosmetic surgery. But going back to the original script of the movie, he said that, would you want to be beautiful, or would you want to be presented with opportunities to be beautiful? Would you want to be blessed with courage, or would you want to have instances where you can prove to be courage? You can be blessed with courage and yet not be courageous. Would you want strength, or would you want an opportunity or a test to prove your resilience? And I leave that thought with all of you. Is no one is blessed with everything. There is a particular Urdu line, "Koi yahan be aib nahi." In this world of people, there is no one without infirmity. Take the best person, you will always find something infirm. And our level of infirmity will keep on rising because इंसानों की जात में ऐब hai. I mean, because we are born as humans, we are fallible. We tend to fail. So no one can tell you the right answers, but then no one can stop you from being the right answer too. As someone who saw some worse days, I just kind of feel that whether it's women or people with abilities, issues, or with gender, I think we have to just be strong because, you know, Mariah Carey says there's a hero inside you. So believe in the hero inside you. While some of you may be lucky to have, good godfathers, good people who support you, good people who will sponsor you. But for those who are not, which I'm assuming is the larger population, my message to you is I believe there's a hero inside you. The second thing, how do we build good allies? So let me tell you one thing. Allyship is not a term, it's not a rainbow flag you wear, it's not a wristband, it's not a label, it's a verb. And for any verb to become into something meaningful, you have to act upon it, you have to action. And for anything to action, what do you need to do is grow a spine. Grow a spine when it comes to standing up for what is right, because you cannot stand up without a spine. बच्चों को हाथ पकड़ के खींच, you make them stand, because that's how their backbone will become strong. To grow into a good ally for women, for ability, for orientation, remember that when you snigger at homophobic, transphobic, genderphobic caricaturing of women, of identities, when you stop doing that, you are an ally. When you stop, when you stand up when people are abusing people, when people send you WhatsApp forwards and you laugh at it, when you stop doing that, you are an ally. When you walk with women's movement, when you walk with Dalits movement, when you walk with PWD and LGBT movement or pride marches, that time you are an ally. But most importantly, the fact is that when you decide the story is not about you, it's about someone else, and you recognize your stuff, that's when you are an ally. So I would say, when people tell people, please come out, I tell people, please, it's time for you as allies to come out. I have already come out. So this is your opportunity to let go of your misogyny, of your bigotry, and your trans and homophobia or ability phobia. Here's your chance to come out of the closet of bigotry and become an ally. So I would say, come out. This is National International Coming Out Month in the US. I would request all of you all to come out as allies. Choose your themes. You don't need to come out as allies for LGBT, but choose your theme and become an ally, because everyone has a potential to do something better for someone else.
Thank you, ma'am. This was really informative. So we have Rohit to thank.
Yeah. Ma'am, on behalf of the entire TRBS team, I'd like to thank you for the enriching talk. It was an honor to host you at TRBS 2020. And thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story. Diversity and inclusion has become a significant part of corporate conversations today, and much of it can be attributed to leaders like you. And I hope we continue on this path going forward and create a better and a more inclusive society. Again, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and giving us a new perspective. It was an absolute pleasure to attend your talk, and I'm sure the audience will take away many valuable learnings from the session. We would also like to thank Business Standard, our financial print media partner, for their support. Also, thank you everyone for attending the event. It was a pleasure hosting you all. Up next, we have an insightful session by Pallavi Tyagi ma'am on leadership in times of crisis. I want to remind everyone that TRBS Speaker Series is conducting many more such sessions today, which are available on YouTube Live. So please look at the roster and don't forget to attend the session.